When you are an early stage founder, and lots of folks don't recognize this, the backpack is incredibly heavy, right? You may have brought in friends and family capital, you may have brought in some of your community capital, and the backpack and the obligation that you feel as a founder is incredible. Like, it's big, right?
Hey, thanks for being here. My name is Leah. In this podcast, you'll get a different take on the world of founders, startups, and innovation. I was a broadcaster for 23 years, not a business exec, so it was a leap to go from TV to VC. But since I've been in this sector, I'm repeatedly amazed by the founders who put everything on the line and just start a company from nothing. Why would they do this? In this podcast, we'll find out. Joining me today is Alice Reimer, serial entrepreneur, mentor, and advisor to many founders, currently CEO of Fillip, a fintech company that has developed a digital fuel and maintenance card for small fleet-based businesses. Alice, thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you, Leah. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know how busy you are, so I'm just very grateful that we've got a couple of seconds to hang out together.
Very important that we do this work together.
Right? Exactly. So let's go back to the beginning. So this is all about the founder mindset. So you first became a founder, I think, in 1999. Have I got that right?
Yes, 1999. You have it right.
How did that come about?
Yeah, I'm actually an accidental entrepreneur.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so I did not set out to be an entrepreneur. In fact, we started our first business, as you mentioned, in 1999. And, I actually thought I would work in big organization, probably in banking, maybe investment banking, was doing, my first level CFA. And then we started Evoco, our very first company, and the rest is history.
No kidding. So what did you like from it right from the beginning?
What did I like about entrepreneurship right from the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that, for me, being an accidental entrepreneur, and I do say that, I don't know that I would ever have set myself up, 20 years ago to be an entrepreneur. But what I think what I came to enjoy was creating opportunities, right? And creating opportunities for businesses and for teammates and for the industries and the markets that we served. I think that's what I really enjoy about entrepreneurship.
Cool. When you and I were talking before, you had said, too, that you wouldn't necessarily advise just jumping into being a founder.
Yeah, no. I would never advise that.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I think, I love being an entrepreneur. And I think that, entrepreneurship is incredibly important. I think small business development is incredibly important to local, regional, provincial economies. Small businesses employ, I think there's something like 53% of all Canadians or whatever the number is. But I think it's actually really important that you actually learn some discipline of business, if I could say it that way.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is you're a 25-year-old, you're just graduating university. Should I go start a company? You should actually go work for a company. You should actually learn how to be an individual contributor. You should learn how to collaborate and be part of a team. You should learn how to manage, how to mentor, how to develop talent. I think those are incredibly important skills as you think about growing organizations, that if you just hop in a little too early, you never have the opportunity to truly learn.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So maybe learn from somebody else for a little bit and then go sink your teeth in.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or start a company with some folks who have maybe a bit of experience, right? Who have had, I'll share with you, one of the best folks on our team to develop talent is Ted O'Grady, who's our CTO.
Right. I
have had such a great privilege in working with Ted. He knows how to recruit, retain. More importantly, he knows how to develop talent, right? And it's a skill.
Yeah. And you said this too when we talked earlier, that being a founder, it's not a solo sport. Like, it's a team effort. Like, you can't do it by yourself.
You cannot do this by yourself. You cannot do this by yourself. There's Dave McClure from 500 Startups many years ago talked about kind of a founding team, sort of a trifecta, a designer, a hustler, and a hack. And, now having been through this a few times, that is exactly what's required. It is this complementary set of skills that, just drive to greater success.
Cool. Okay, I got to ask, which one are you then?
Oh, is there any question?
You're the hustler, aren't you?
I'm the hustler.
I love this. Okay, so what does that mean to you then, being the hustler in that role?
For me, what does that mean to be the hustler? For me, that's really, quite frankly, being the external face of the business, working directly to, I'd say, uncover opportunities for our business and not being afraid to ask, whether it's for the business, for investment, for building those relationships and those networks to enable us to achieve the goals that we set for ourselves.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so you have done this now several times, right? You were then the CEO of Chaotix, and now you're the CEO of Fillip. What keeps you coming back? Why do you keep doing this? It's not like it's easy.
I think there's part of my brain that is maybe a little twigged. I actually really love it. I really, really love it. What I love is, first and foremost, I love being part of building. So when I sort of think about my career, starting our first company, joining Shelley at Chaotix to help her sort of move her business forward, building and helping launch Creative Destruction Lab at the University of Calgary. Yeah. For me, it's about identifying an opportunity, building a team, and I would say learning and exploiting opportunities that are there in the market. And I love it. It's not for everyone. Yeah. But I love it.
I can tell. And you keep doing it over and over, and you're doing it very, very well. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. So CEO Fillip. Let's talk a little bit. So what is Fillip?
So Fillip Fleet is leading the digital transformation of the fuel card industry to enable the energy transition.
Well, there you go. So
fleet cards, we might have thought of them as, a gas card is what we would have traditionally referred to them as. They actually the technology stack hasn't changed since 1980. Wow. 1985. Yeah. So it's like a 40-year-old tech stack. And when you think about taking a plastic card with a mag stripe and you think about the future of the fuel car, the future of the transportation industry, whatever that looks like, taking a plastic card with a mag stripe to charge your EV isn't going to work.
Right.
And consumer expectations are, why shouldn't I have a mobile-first digital experience? When I'm driving my work truck, for example, or I'm doing deliveries on behalf of my owner. And so for us, it's about bringing that whole new digital experience so that we can enable the energy transition as fleets, right? So fleets are about B2B. Right. As fleets move from traditional internal combustion engines to EV engines.
Cool.
Or hydrogen engines, or actually it doesn't matter.
Whatever the case may be.
However you choose to fuel.
Yeah. Right, cool. Okay, so you mentioned this just briefly in that explanation, a digital transformation of a traditional industry. This is something you've done before. You like to do this. Yes. What does that mean? Your face. So just so you know, her face just lit up.
So let's talk about our first company, which was Avoco. So we were in the design and construction management space. Yeah. And back in 1999, early 2000, just if you think about where we were still using dial-up modems, right, and cable modems. We were in fact testing our software to 14.4 kbit. If you remember those sort of screechy telephone things. Yeah. And so what we didn't recognize at the time, being fairly young, is that we were, with our partner, we were in fact changing an industry. So our first enterprise customer happened to be Walmart. And Walmart doesn't do anything, of course, as you know, that doesn't save money. Right. It doesn't have a stated return on investment. And there was nobody who could move the commercial construction market like Walmart did. Sure. And so now I take... hindsight is a beautiful thing. I look back and we actually changed an industry with them. We literally helped them move from paper to digital. And we did that simply by cutting out printing and distribution. That's where we started. Walmart used to print every single set of documents, and literally pallets of documents would go out on a weekly basis to their contractors and subcontractors. Wow. Pallets of paper. That's crazy. And so imagine the savings in terms of not only the printing and distribution, but now even I think about it from, an ESG lens. Mm-hmm. Huge, right? Huge. Okay, and here you are doing it again. Here we are doing it again. And you're doing it again with Fillip. Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. But now I'm smarter. Okay, right? Now I actually understand what I'm doing. Because you're not 20-something, right? Exactly. Yeah, you've been around the block a few times. Yeah. Okay, I'm not that old. But I've been around the block a few times. We're the same age, just okay. Okay, so tell me though,
with this company in particular, it's going very well very quickly. Do you think that is because of experience? Like, so I'm saying this because, like, look at, you've won some really big awards. Okay, you just closed your raise, and you raised, can I say this? Am I allowed to say
this? Yep.
$5 million in less than 6 months, we could say? I mean, in a crazy market. So this is unprecedented, we could say, or it's highly unusual.
Okay. Well, let's actually talk about a few things.
Okay.
First and foremost, from where we started to where we are now, it has not been a straight line.
Right.
Right. Like, let's not forget, where Fillip really, got started. Brian and Ted and I really started working in this space in sort of late 18, early 19. More on a consumer, business to consumer type opportunity.
Right.
Recognizing through, having a couple of early market implementations, having a couple of pivots. And it was really sort of January of 2021 where it was like, okay, we either have to figure this out or we had to go get jobs, right? Like, one of those two things has to happen.
Whoa.
And so we got really very focused in terms of what it was that the market opportunity was, and could we do this, and what would we do? And so, by March 2021, we had identified that this was really where the opportunity was. We had identified who our partners were going to be to bring our tech stack to market. We actually added our first customer for fleet fueling by November. Very quickly. And then from there, adding to our team, bringing in additional sort of executive leadership and talent has helped us really start to, accelerate. Mm-hmm. So yes, we're definitely seeing some early market signals of acceptance and growth, but it's not a straight line, right? Like, this is not our first organization was like a 13-year overnight success. This is not like a 6-month sort of win, right? And there has been a lot of hard learnings and lessons, and quite frankly, there's been invested capital, and now this is about how we take that next level of growth.
Ooh, that's exciting. Okay, so you touched on this, and this is what I like to get into in this podcast. How hard is it when, say, for example, it's January 2021 and you're thinking, okay, this is do or die time?
Yeah.
What does that feel like?
Yeah, it's a do or die time. It's like, it's actually, in some ways, I would describe it as a bit calming, right? Because, at the end of the day, when you are an early stage founder, and lots of folks don't recognize this, the backpack is incredibly heavy. Right? You may have brought in friends and family capital. You may have brought in some of your community capital. And the backpack and the obligation that you feel as a founder is incredible. Like, it's big, right? But at the same time, it's also courageous to say, we either have to figure this out or we have to make a different decision. Because too often, founders will hold on too long.
Right.
And then you're sort of, you've spent many, many years invested in something that may not have or drive the outcome that you're hoping for, right? And, Fillip, like, man, oh man, we have a massive opportunity that we are working to exploit, but there's always risks along this highway that we're on, right?
Right.
And so, I would just say to that is that it's actually, in some ways, it's quite calming to know when you're going to make a decision. We are going to make a decision March 2021, whether we're go, no go. And if we're no go, then we've got some hard conversations to have with folks who invested and believed in what we were going to achieve. But it's the right decision. It's the right decision for us, and it's the right decision for them.
Right. So what you described there with the heavy backpack and it's not easy, like, this sounds terrifying to me. Like, I know you said this isn't for everybody, but this is what I'm exploring in this podcast. Like, I have no idea how you could possibly carry that backpack even in the first place. Explain that to me. Okay,
first and foremost, everybody wants to be a startup CEO until they're actually a startup CEO.
Okay.
And then they recognize how heavy the backpack really is, right? But what I would say is that I don't ever carry the backpack on my own. Right? Like, I think that's the thing that lots of early stage founders have to recognize, which is also why it's important to have a sort of trifecta of a founding team or an executive team or mentors and advisors, is I actually don't feel like I'm carrying the backpack on my own. I actually really feel that, I can pull the bricks out and I can give them to other people.
Right. That's helpful.
Hugely helpful, right?
Yeah.
But recognizing that there is still a backpack.
Absolutely. Okay, but let's say you had to have those conversations with the investors. And I know you have hard conversations all the time, right? So what is that like? I mean, how do you face some of these investors that were maybe skeptical in the first place, or just really aren't sure if you're the one that's actually going to be able to pull this off?
Yeah.
What's it like to sit in that room with those folks?
Yeah, I don't sit there very long.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, well, let's talk about it from realistic. So, at the end of the day, not. You talk about my raise, right?
Yeah.
I had a lot of conversations.
Right.
Like, probably north of 100 conversations. But I started back in like August timeframe, starting to say, hey, we're going to be raising. Here's what we're going to be doing. Here's the traction that we've had. Here's the market that we serve. Does this fit your investment thesis? James Lockery, of course, he and I were on a panel the other day. When he did one of his raises, he said, Alice got off lucky. She only had 100. I had 200 conversations, right? And so I think you just, as an early stage founder, you have to recognize, quite frankly, that, the investment, you're asking folks to invest in your vision, in the promise that you're bringing to the market with their hard-earned capital. And it shouldn't be easy, right? They should not just part with their dollars without, truly believing and investing in what it is that you're describing that opportunity is, because they've had to work hard, whether it's an investment fund like a VC fund and they've had to raise capital, or they're a friends and family or early stage investor. So it should be work, right? It should be work, and it's what we as early stage founders have to figure out is who are the right partners for us. Because not every dollar is the same.
Right.
And you shouldn't ever just take dollars for dollars' sakes. You need to find the right partners that believe in your vision, that understand what you're trying to achieve, and who will be there as the road gets bumpy and turny. Because it does.
Because it does. It almost does every time, doesn't it? That's just
there's
what this
no straight
like.
line.
Yeah. That's just what this looks like. Okay, so how do you keep going after you've had 100 conversations and 75 of them are like, no thanks?
Oh, I just deeply believe. I absolutely, unequivocally, deeply believe in what we are doing.
Wow. And that just keeps you going.
And I love it.
Yeah, well, clearly.
And I love it.
And her face just lit up again.
Yeah. And I love it. What I love is I know I see the opportunity we're creating. Mm-hmm. I talk to our customers. So one of the things that we do is we have 24/7 support. I'm on the call list. So if it rings through and a couple of folks haven't got it, or perhaps it's Saturday evening, it comes to me.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. Because I get to talk to our customers and our clients firsthand. I get to hear, what are they learning? How are they experiencing our product? I ask questions about their business. How did you find Fillip? How's your experience been so far? What can we do better? What are the things that you as a small business owner are struggling with every day that we might be able to help you with at some point in the future? I just had a call the other day. Man, oh man, I really appreciate our customer success team, really appreciate our customer success team, where they were, trying to get onboarded and we're not, I would say, digitally native, mm-hmm. right? In terms of that wasn't their first sort of digital first experience. But you know what? What a great call. Yeah. What a great call. We got them both onboarded. They've done their first fill. It's awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome. So is that a thing where it's you are building up a level of confidence about what you're building because you are talking to your customers all the time, and that gives you that confidence to say, listen, I know what I'm doing. So, yeah. And you had said to me before, you just got to not pay attention to the noise.
Don't pay attention to the noise. You just have to believe unequivocally in what you're doing. When we started our first business, everybody's like, Microsoft and Autodesk, and they're all going to do that. And I'm like, okay, we were just young, naive, too dumb to fail, right? Now I just truly see the opportunity, mm-hmm. and I just this is a massive opportunity that is not being served by traditional cards and traditional industry today, and it's up to us.
Wow, that's exciting. Very exciting. Okay, let's transition. You mentioned briefly CDL, Creative Destruction Lab Rockies. Clearly, you're so passionate about this entrepreneurship thing. Tell me why you wanted to be a part of CDL Rockies and lead this out of the gate.
I love CDL, and I really miss it. So we can talk about that. So when I first got involved in CDL, the dean of the business school was like, hey, we want to bring this program to the University of Calgary. We want you to come and run it. And I said, oh, Jim, difficult to manage, don't want a job, He's like, you're perfect. So anyways, I had a great privilege of launching the lab with Dr. Michael Robinson and in 2017. And what's unique about CDL that I've come to really appreciate is, the whole thesis there is that in Canada, we spend a tremendous amount of capital in invention. Right? So we invest in post-secondary institutions. We invent technology. On Canadian context, what we're really poor at is what they call innovation. It's taking those inventions and it's converting that, right? It's realizing the economic, the financial, the potential of that invention, which is quite frankly innovation.
Right.
And, sort of Dr. Jay Agarwal, who founded the lab, had a working thesis. And he said, look, in Canada, we spend lots of money on basic research, right? Yep. Silicon Valley does not have the market cornered in hustle, and capital will find good ideas. So why are we not in Canada recognizing and realizing all of the investment that we have put into basic research?
Yeah.
And his sole thesis was it's judgment. It's that we lack experienced folks around the table who have been there and done that, who have started, founded, operated, and exited businesses of size and scale. And so we need to bring that judgment to these early stage ventures to be able to accelerate their commercial potential. And it works.
It works, doesn't it?
Yeah. It works. So CDL Rockies, we launched in 2017. We've now just finished our 6th year. The companies that have come through the program have raised over $1 billion and created $3 billion of equity value. And so that's across a general technology and a health stream, and general technology, which includes health and med tech, ag, energy. And we're one of 5 labs in Canada, 13 labs across the world.
That's incredible.
It's awesome.
You should be very proud.
Yeah,
it's very exciting.
I'm actually just incredibly proud, and our current site lead, Heather Marshall, she lets me come back and moderate. So grateful for that too. I get to go, once a session and spend some time, which is fun.
It's got to be fun and invigorating and inspiring to connect with those early stage founders again and feel that energy and excitement that they have.
I love learning about the new technologies and the market opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So good companies or good ventures, we call them in CDL. The right kind of venture for a CDL is great technology, like world-changing, terrible business model. Have no idea what market to apply it to, how to apply it, how to do it, how to take it to market. And then you surround them with folks who've already got that experience.
Right.
James Lockery is an example.
Sure.
Or, Alison Sundstrom, who's in our ag stream. Like folks who have been there and done that can absolutely help with that set of experience that these early stage and deep science technology companies don't have.
Right. Okay, so if we've got some young founders listening to this, what if you could give them some advice, what would you tell them?
Well, we already talked about that, which is like, go get a job.
Yep.
Get some experience.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Work on your idea. Start your idea. But truly, or surround yourselves with co-founders, right? I would always advise go get some co-founders. I think that's really important. And then B, I would say get a little bit of experience, right?
Right.
Learn how to be part of a team, how to grow and develop and mentor people, and then really start to build on your idea and your organization.
Amazing. Terrific. Let's talk a little bit too about the 51. So you got involved in this right from the get-go. Tell me about the 51 and why you wanted to build that too.
So I co-founded the 51 with Shelley Kuipers and Judy Fairburn. Incredibly proud of the work that they have done. So, the 51 was really born out of, Shelley and I have been colleagues and friends for years. We were on an airplane. I think we were drinking Diet Coke and eating licorice, which now neither one of us probably do regularly at all. We're on the plane a lot, but we don't drink the Diet Coke or the licorice. And, as female leaders and, founders, we're sitting around the table and we're talking to investment folks, and it's really tough. Like less than 5% today of all venture capital goes to women-led or women-founded businesses. And Shell and I, a decade ago, were like, we got to change this. But, life happens, too many other things going on, building companies. And so in 2019, we paired up Judy Fairburn, and we co-founded the 51. And the whole working thesis of the 51 is A, there isn't enough capital going into women-led and women-founded businesses, and B, there's $1 trillion worth of wealth that will be transferring to women in the next decade. And women oftentimes do not have the same investment opportunities that are afforded to men. And what we mean by that is, there's do they get the call, right? It's like, oh, hey, I've got this startup, early stage company, do you want to invest? And so we're doing a couple of things. First and foremost is we started something called the Movement 51, which is, and sort of the marquee program out of that is something called the Financial Feminist Investing Lab. Mm-hmm. And it's about really sort of demystifying early stage investing.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to do pre-seed or seed or venture investing? What are the risks? How do you look at deals? How do you, consider? So that's one part of the organization, which is our not-for-profit called Movement 51. The other side is, of course, we've raised some venture funds themselves. So we raised our first fund. I think it was $7.5 or $8 million, and with co-invest, it was almost near $10 million. Wow. And I think 90% of the capital that was invested in that fund came from women. Then we announced our Ag Food Fund, and Allison Sundstrom came to join us as a general partner in that fund, and I'm delighted and incredibly proud of the organization. They just closed their second close, which was $30 million, and they're on their way to over $51 million.
This is unbelievable.
All women and diverse led organizations. And then, of course, we've raised our second fund of our general fund of the 51, which will be another $7.5 or $10 million as well.
Wow. That is incredible. That is life-changing.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I get the privilege of being a cheerleader and helping on the side and, getting to support the great work that the team is doing at the 51 and then get to build my own.
So something that just occurs to me as you're telling me this incredible story is that, a lot of people, like you say, have these great ideas, but they don't follow through with it. They don't actually build the thing.
Yeah.
So what's going on in your mind that allows you to build the thing?
There's something wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Look, there's lots of ideas out there,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
This is about execution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, if you want to go down this road, it's truly about execution.
Right. Cool. I would imagine that going along with execution is being resilient. And you and I have talked about the word resilient, and you were like, resilient's a good word, but you tend to like the word flourish even better.
Yeah, we were talking about that because, resiliency means that you just keep getting battered, right? You got to put up this armor.
Yeah.
And it's really, resiliency is about how you block out the noise and keep, you just continue to, you've adapt, right? And overcome.
Right.
So that you can continue to flourish. And so I think that's the part, it's sort of thinking about resiliency a little bit different. You need resiliency, right? How do you, when you look at the world today and you talk about, everybody's talking about there's no capital and how do you do that? And you just have to keep going, right? You have to block out the noise. You have to stay focused on the outcome that you're delivering to. And there is resiliency in that.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
But it's learning to sort of take that in, adapt, and use that as sort of the way to flourish.
Amazing. You and I also talked about in our pre-call about how being a founder is not like a traditional 9-to-5 job, and it's going to have implications in the rest of your life as well. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. And don't worry, I talk to all the founders about this, not just the women. But how does being a founder affect your personal life? What does it look like?
Yeah, I don't even know if I could have a 9-to-5 job. Sometimes I dream about it.
Really? Yeah. Why is that? Why do you say
that?
I'm
like, what would it be like to go to work at 7:30 or 8 and come home at 5? I'd be like, that'd be amazing, right? I'm not wired that way. Absolutely, 100% not wired that way. And so, let's talk about that. So both of my, certainly our first business was co-founded with my husband.
Yeah.
Brian is our chief product officer at Fillip Fleet. We have two amazing boys, 20, almost 21 and 17. But, just like starting a company is it's a team sport.
Yes.
When you're both entrepreneurs, it's a team sport, right?
Yeah.
And, really, at the end of the day, Brian and I figured it out in the beginning, right? How did we manage our little people? And, couldn't have done it without my sisters and lots of family and community around us, for sure. Mm-hmm. And then, thinking about it career-wise, Brian made a bunch of sacrifices, right? I made some sacrifices, but so did he. It wasn't there was one priority over another. It's that we both, we made it work. We were true and continue to be true partners. Yeah. And we're still married, right? Like that's,
and you still like each other.
I know. I actually like him. And we're still married,
This is great. I think it speaks to something that James Lockery talks about a lot too, is you just have to find the people that are going to support you in this.
100%.
Right? And you got to make sure they're all in line and they all know what you're going to do and what this is going to look like, because you're going to need to lean on them.
Totally.
Yeah.
We have a very dear friend, and when our guys were little, she actually lived down the road. It was Carrie Gordon, and man, oh man, like I don't know how many dinners she made in those early days. I don't know how often my kid was down there. Like it's the community that you surround yourself with in order to make that. My sister's like, honestly, oh yeah, I couldn't have done it.
Amazing. You had the people.
Now they're like self-sufficient, independent humans, and I'm like, hey, hello, come visit
Remember
your mom.
me? Yeah. I hear you. I've got teenagers. I know. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about. You've got this thing going now. Fillip's happening. You've talked a lot about impact. As you know, Thin Air Labs is very focused on creating meaningful impact in the world and helping our ventures do that. When you think of creating impact in the world, what does that mean to you personally? I'd like to explore. And then also with Fillip.
Okay, so for me, impact is making, look, I spend a lot of my spare time and have spent a lot of my spare time, and as a result, obviously, of some of the work that I did around CDL about how important it is for us as a city and in a province and a country, where innovation fits in that agenda, right? And how to be able to, in particular, let's use Calgary, to make sure that we're diversifying to include energy. Right? Energy is one of many sectors within our community and how technology and innovation can continue to support that agenda. And so being able to look at some of those things and the way that we're sort of shaping our community has been really important. The other thing that's important to me is spending time in mentorship, in particular with, early stage founders and women. Right? Where, it's one of the things that I would say sort of fills up my cup, right? Is investing, my time where I can and where appropriate to help, other folks along their journey. From a Fillip perspective, look, this is going to be a multi-decade transition, and we're going to be part of it, and we're going to be the reason, particularly on the B2B fleet side, that it happens.
Wow. It's exciting. I like it when you talk like that. I'm like, I'll give her the money.
Yeah.
I'll make it happen.
I also want to, but let's also talk about impact on Fillip.
Sure.
So the other thing that, we're investing in from a Fillip perspective, so well-diversified organization, but we're also investing in creating a team that is, I would, in our customer success area, I would consider to be non-traditional. So, we have individuals on our team who are, I would say, in their second career, who are now contributing to a digital-first economy. So, for example, we have folks, Liz on our team, she ran a dental practice for 30 years, right? And now she is on our customer success team. She helps on the sales side and the conversions. We have other folks who have come back into the workforce after, having some time away. We've got someone joining our team who is a retired firefighter, right?
Cool.
And so it's about creating an organization that, there is a tremendous workforce out there that is available to organizations like Fillip if you can think a little bit differently about it, right? And, and we're willing to think a little bit differently about it.
Clearly. I love this because, as you know, I've done the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm all new to technology and innovation. That's why I'm continually amazed by what you guys do and really need to understand this. So this is great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful that you're doing that. And I think there's a bit of a blocker there for people. Like they're like, oh, well, that's tech. That's not me. I don't understand that. I don't get it. And you're saying doesn't need to be that way.
Doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be that way. And there's programs to help make that happen, right?
Yeah.
So you think about, the work that's happening over at 321 Growth Academy and On-Ramp, right?
Beautiful.
Or Evolve You.
Yes.
And so I think it's just, for folks who are looking to maybe transition into the tech world, it's sort of thinking about, where do you fit? How do you fit? And exploring programs like that could enable that transition.
Right. It's exciting. It just makes you think like, what could be possible,
Yeah.
right? When you activate that. Yeah.
Totally.
Exciting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the opportunity in Alberta. We've talked about this before. You're incredibly bullish on the opportunity in Alberta right now. Why is that?
Oh my God, have you seen the numbers? Like there's so much happening here.
Yes.
We just have so much potential. You could go through and look at all the stats, highest educated workforce, lots of immigration into Alberta, the tech sector continues to grow. We're like the third most livable city in the world. I think the only reason we're not number one is because you can't do anything about minus 40. All of those are opportunities, right? And we're also seeing support sort of at the municipal and the provincial and the federal level to continue to invest in tech and innovation, right? You look at things like Alberta Enterprise, the continued investment in venture capital funds that will support and grow technology companies here. You look at the work we did with the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund, which was both investing in, programs and accelerators across the province, as well as VC funds to be able to spur on that innovation. So incredibly bullish about the investments that are going in order to actually realize our potential as a city and a province. There is actually no better place to do this than here.
And I would suggest that it has to do with this sort of entrepreneurial mindset, this founder mindset, if you will.
Yeah.
Because, the province was sort of built on this idea, well, we're just going to do this thing and see what happens.
Yes. I mean, there is the entrepreneurial mindset, right? Yeah. There is a tremendous amount of wealth in this province, too.
Yes, of course.
And there's also, some, I would call it unique competitive advantages that we have that other jurisdictions don't. And what I mean by that is, so we have two research-intensive universities. Yes. You think about what we're doing at U Calgary with the Innovation District and Innovate Calgary and the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking and the investment that's going in at basic research, right? You look at what's happening up at the University of Alberta, for example, and then Amy, where again they've gotten topped up, and they're one of the top artificial intelligence, machine learning research institutes in the world.
Yeah.
And so, then you look at some of the other things that we have that I think are unique competitive advantages, and we just have to continue to invest to exploit those advantages for the benefit of our citizens.
Right. And we will. We're on the way.
Yeah.
We're doing it right now.
Well, and look at what Thin Air Labs is doing, right?
Yeah, we're doing our best to help, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so as we wrap this up, let's think about a couple of things. What do you want listeners to understand about being a founder?
What I want listeners to understand, and by the way, I do not want to dissuade anybody from being an entrepreneur by saying, go get a bit of experience, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that has to be 20 years of experience, but just go get a bit of experience, right? Because entrepreneurship is it is the one form of economic development, right? It is one key form of economic development, and we need to continue to invest in that. I think what I want founders and entrepreneurs to sort of think about is that this is a team sport.
Yeah.
And you need to surround yourself with mentors, with advisors, with co-founders, with community to help you do this, right? Because it's very lonely if you're on your own. And it's harder. And it's hard enough. So just do this other stuff and it'll be a little bit easier.
There you go. All right. And if you think of Fillip now and where you're going, how does the story go for Fillip?
Yeah, I think, how does the story go for Fillip? The story goes for Fillip where, we realize the vision of being the leader in the space. And we are, right?
Yeah.
We are not just, today we're, more of a traditional fuel card, but, whether it's ICE or EV or hydrogen, we are the recognized leader for fleet cards in the world. We're going to start in North America, though.
Yeah. And you're going to disrupt an entire industry all over again.
Yeah, we are.
Amazing. Alice, thank you so much for this.
Yeah, thanks. That was fun.
Right? As a catalyst to attract investment, drive innovation, and spur digital transformation in the city, the Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund is shaping Calgary's future. The The fund has made a total of 25 investments over the last 5 years that are stimulating employment, strengthening our talent pipeline, and diversifying the local economy. After all, there's a reason opportunity is in its name. Discover how OSIF is helping build Calgary as a global innovation destination at opportunitycalgary.com.